Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call this budget workshop / special call school board meeting of the San Felipe Del Rio CISD Board of Trustees to order, the day being Thursday, June 8th, 2023. Madam Secretary, would you call roll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Chavez? Here. Mr. Oberfeld?
Present.
Ms. Gonzalez? Here. Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Mr. Galindo?
Present.
Ms. Haynes? Here. And myself. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Let the record show that we do have a quorum of board members and that this meeting has been duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We will have opening ceremonies, again with a moment of silence for personal reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We'll start first with our budget workshop, which is item 3. The 2023-2024 proposed budget and approval of employee compensation package. Amy Childress.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. This evening, I come to you to present you with an updated proposed budget for the 2023-24 year. To get started, I'm going to start with a couple of reports that the board had requested. The first report I have for you is the recap of the 22-23 campus budgets. The first one that we're looking at is the elementary campus budgets. And for the 2022-23 school year, they had a total revised budget of $420,627. As of the time that I ran this report, which was this week on Tuesday, they have spent $343,448. We currently have encumbrances, purchase orders of $14,485, leaving at this time $62,070 available. I would like to note that there, of course, we still are early in June. A couple of the campuses do have some trainings that they will be attending later on in June and July that we will still be paying for, so some of these funds might be utilized for those purposes. The second slide I have is for the secondary campus budgets. For the 2022-23 school year, we have total revised budgets of $585,375. They have used so far $467,541, with current purchase order encumbrances of $48,703, with available funding at this time of $65,214. And again, they still have some possibility of some June purchases that could still be put on the books. Any questions? Any questions?
Dr. Rios, I know that one time we had the campus freshman budget separate, and we have it together lumped with high school.
Yes, sir.
Is that how it's reported now? I know that for academic purposes.
We have a way of separating that because they do get their own budget, and we could certainly break that up and provide to you in a report. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, because I really don't, I can't see the percentage, for each school. If it could be broken down, just,
Sure. Absolutely.
I could do that. Mhm. Okay.
I just want to, again, have it on record to say that I asked for the campus budgets because we've had so many changes in administration. And I want to make sure that the principal communicates to the faculty that those funds are available for supplies and to be utilized accordingly. Now, in the past, I've seen where all of a sudden they go to the warehouse and purchase $5,000, $10,000. It's not meant for that, but to supplement instructional material that is used in the classroom. Not for art, not for construction paper and so forth. It's for instructional materials. I know that the bilingual teachers especially, we hear from them that there's not enough material, and sometimes they don't know that the material is available unless the principal attends the exhibits during the conference and gets to bring back some of the catalogs and distribute them to teachers to find out that there is material galore for science, for bilingual ESL, all of those areas. And so I want to make sure that we know exactly how much is spent per campus, because I want the principals to make sure that they communicate to the teachers that that money is available. I don't want this money to be left over and carry over because it wasn't communicated at the start of the year. In the past meetings, I've explained so many different ways of doing that. There's ways of acknowledging 100% attendance. There's ways of saying this teacher's never wanting to, be out or attends all the PTO, parental meetings or whatever the case might be. Above and beyond, it can be utilized in whatever manner, but for instructional purposes. And so I hope, for the new board members, there's a campus budget allocation for every campus, and so that goes to the teachers for instructional materials. And if it's not being utilized, it's because it's not being communicated to the teachers that that money is available. You can break it down by the areas that are being tested, or you can break it down by subject matter. It doesn't matter. The STAR test might be going away, so there might be many ways of distributing that. But we hear from teachers that they don't have enough materials for science. They don't have enough materials for bilingual ESL classes, and the money's left over. So, again, I'm just communicating the reason for this report, and in other times I've singled out campuses for having thousands of dollars left over when teachers spend money out of their pockets to purchase materials. But that's enough of my sermon for today. I just wanted to, again, get those figures, and I hope that one day we come to having zero for the balance that is left. I know that there are some encumbrances, and a lot of times those are done like they find out that I'm asking for a report, and all of a sudden they spend it. And that's been the case before, because I've noticed people buying TVs, and TVs are not instructional materials. But anyway, I'll get off my horse and let this commentary end. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to continue with, we'd like to review at this time, bring to your, for review, our committed projects for the 22-23 school year. Again, these are still in process. We will come back and visit these at the end of June when I provide you with the estimated end-of-year financials. But at this time, we would like to review a couple with you. So this top area here, this top area here, these are projects, committed fund projects that are in process and that we currently have no favorability for. So these are projects, these are the last column here. This is the amount that we will be looking at carrying forward into the 23-24 committed section. The second grouping of projects, these are also projects currently committed that are in process that we have identified we will have some favorability for when these projects are completed. So this $527,730, that is money that will go back into our fund balance for this current year. The next slide, these are some currently committed projects that we have started the process of these projects, but we can, if the board so identifies, we can put a hold on some of these projects. And if need be, we have estimated that we would be able to have about $4.4 million available that could go towards the fund balance if we were to put a hold on these projects going forward. And this will come in to play a little bit further down in my slides. Okay. And also, again, for the 2023-24 year, at this time, these are some new committed projects administration has identified that we would like to for you to possibly adopt when we, again, at the end, when we have our end of the year discussion. The first one is our insurance contribution, $1 million towards that. The second one is Sinisa Hills student meals. At our last meeting when we renewed the food service management program, at this time we are identified for the district to be 100% CEP, except for Sinisa Hills because it is a new elementary and we don't have any data for that. So we're preparing just in case. Those students can still apply for free and reduced meals through the NSLP, but because they possibly won't be on the CEP amounts for everybody to eat free, the district will pay for the meals for the first year. The next project is a retention pond roadway at the Old Garfield. I believe we're looking at doing an MOU with the city for that. Our contribution, I believe, is for materials for what would be about $80,000. We have the Calderon fire alarm system that needs to be upgraded, and that's at $214,330. And then we would like to set aside some money for fencing. We had a school safety standards grant that we will be reclassing some general fund expenditures to that grant. It was the door locks and things like that. So that frees up that money that we would like to put to committed for security fencing for next year. So that brings us to an additional committed funds of $282,707 for new committed projects to consider for the 23-24 year.
Dr. Rios, I believe you have a question.
Well, no, I was gonna ask Ms. Childress to make sure that she went through each one of these, because these are new projects, and most of them, if not all of them, are very necessary, but she already did that, and I just wanted to clarify that we're really not gonna be talking about the committed funds until the final meeting in June. However, it does play into the bigger budget picture that we're discussing, so we'll refer to it at the end, so she took care of it.
So questions from board members? I'll ask one, Dr. Rios. Is there anything ongoing that needs to be done ASAP? Like, let's say Calderon fire system, how long would that take?
Well, we We have, at Calderon Elementary, we have a problem with the alarm where it goes off and then it's hard to reset, so, you know, we don't know what's going on when the alarm does sound, so we have to check it a lot. But just to replace that deal at Calderon, that small problem at Calderon will cost us over $60,000. So it doesn't seem appropriate to invest $60,000 into an old system that might continue to break. So then the prudent thing to do is replace the whole thing, because we might be throwing away $60,000 just to have to add another $60,000 later. That's why we're requesting the $214,000. But of what's listed on here, the three important ones, should we get in a bind and not want to approve all of them, obviously we need the insurance contribution because that's part of our budget. The Ceniza Hill student meals, everybody in the district is going to get a free meal every day, so it doesn't make sense that only the Ceniza Hill students wouldn't. Although there may be a possibility where they could also qualify, SFE and its children are still looking at that. The Calderon fire alarm is important. It's not a must, but it is important. And then the fencing, we listed it on there, but in reality, we already get that money back from what we call JVing. These expenses that you have already approved, they've already happened, just JVing back to the grant, so then we can recycle that money for more fencing. But if push came to shove, the insurance contribution, the Ceniza Hill student meals, and probably the Calderon fire alarm would be the most important ones that we would definitely need to incorporate into this following school year.
Okay, question, the insurance contribution, for example, that, the start date would be September 1st?
I mean, these are money that's allocated, and we wouldn't touch this money until it became necessary on down the line. Probably, if the board approves the budget, we'll begin the insurance contribution, the increased contribution, this budget in July. But as far as touching that $1 million, that would be on a month-by-month basis as we see how our fund balance is going into negative. So it's not like we're gonna touch that money immediately.
So what is the fiscal year start and end date?
For insurance, the fiscal year starts in January. That's when the fiscal year starts. The contribution, if the board would approve our recommendation on the insurance contribution, that one starts in July. But we believe that our recommendation for the employee contribution, so that they continue to pay nothing, what we're saying, or what we're recommending that the Board of Trustees allot from the budget, we believe, and our insurance consultant believes, that we would still be about $1 million short. That's why we're wanting to take this money from fund balance to make sure that the insurance is solvent for the entire fiscal year.
Okay. We'll go on with this, but I just want to make sure that, you know, we are uncertain about the money we're getting from the session, legislative session, so it's difficult to say, you know, what needs to go on hold so that, I know that later on we'll be dealing with the compensation plans, but I just want to make sure that projects that are not prudent, necessary for the immediate start, that we should wait until we know exactly. I believe there will not be a per pupil allocation increase. Funding formula has not even been discussed. So I just want to make sure that we pause on some of the projects that are not that significant of importance.
If I may, Mr. Mesa, can you go back to the first slide on fund balance projects, the one that has the two of them? If we look at the one that has a little blue bubble, those are already in process, and we really can't stop halfway because we're far enough along where the, we have to move forward, okay? We can't turn back now, okay? The ones that are in process and have favorability, those we pretty much studied them, and we said they're either already complete or we have a solid quote, and that's all we're gonna spend, so we're able to take 527. Now, the next budget, the next ones that are on the standalone, the ones that have in-process funds available, those are the ones that what we've done up to this point, we can stop right there, because they all involve really doing plans, and we don't have to continue with it. The only one is the Del Rio High School perimeter fence. I mean, that one, they've already started on that one, but you can see for the place on hold area, there's no funds there, because we've already moved forward with that. We just don't have to continue. But these projects, we don't have to bring any additional purchase orders anytime in the immediate future. So that money is stay put. We won't necessarily move them out and put them back into fund balance, but we won't bring you any purchase orders to approve. So those, you can guarantee that they would be on hold until the board feels comfortable moving forward with it. The money would stay in committed funds, but we won't use it until the board feels comfortable. Does that make sense? And then the new projects, well, on the new projects, these are projects that we definitely want to continue. I'm sorry, that we definitely want to start for the reasons that we've explained. But that's up to y'all. And these are the only ones that you'll be acting on. Well, in reality, you'll act on all of them to recommit. But just because you recommit does not mean that we're gonna start spending. We still need your approval on each and every one of the expenditures related to them, and we won't bring any to you until we feel comfortable. Okay?
I want to make this statement to include that perimeter fencing is part of the security. So that should be part of the grant, the safety grant, correct?
Yes, except that we've already spent, the board already spent local funds on all the security items. So the perimeter, that money is gonna be placed back in our savings. So in order for us to continue to use that money moving forward for additional fencing, you do have to recommit that. And that is one that if you recommit, then we would want to start spending that one. That's probably the only one that we want to act on immediately. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's a priority. Fencing is a priority for safety. But I'm saying, you know, we did receive the safety grant in the amount of $488,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, at this time, I will continue with our projected 2023-2024 budget. And I do want to say, at this time, what we are proposing is based on current law. We are daily monitoring. If we have any special sessions or any future, we will come back to you and revise that as necessary. So at this time, we are projecting our total projected revenue at $100,732,754 for 2023-24. Our general fund expenditures at this time, we are projecting at $106,285,921. And at this time, I'm going to go through a couple of slides that are based on our interactive workbook that we did, and it will explain what makes up this budget.
Amy,
So
before you do that, I'm sorry to be interrupting you so much, but we don't have the certified appraisal values yet, do we?
No, sir, we received the preliminary. We will receive the certified in late July.
Okay. And then the other thing is, we don't know anything about the homestead exemption, where it's going or what, but those monies would be replaced by the state, Dr. Rios?
Yes, sir. At least the language that they've tossed around is that if they increase the homestead exemption, the state would make up for it with funds. In other words, money that we don't collect in taxes, the state makes up for it. They have the figure, the entitlement figure per student, and they don't deviate from that. So whatever comes in with taxes, they provide less money at the state. Or if more money comes in with taxes, then they provide less money at the state. But at the end, that entitlement money per student would always stay the same.
Okay. Just want to interject something else here. I'm sorry to be taking up so much time, but, you know, we receive $6,160 per student. That's the funding that we get from the state. And when the vouchers that Governor Abbott wants to pass, immediately he sets the amount at $8,000 per student going to charter schools or private schools. And that in itself is atrocious. I mean, it's just horrible to know that we can't fund $8,000 per student for public schools, but it can't be funded for charter schools and private schools. It's a sad reality what state we're in from the elected officials that we have in our state. Because we rank at the bottom when it's funding for teacher salaries and funding for students, and not to mention special ed, you know, of all the areas that are needed, we don't get funded for. But I don't want to prolong this meeting anymore. It's just so unfair.
Okay, so for our proposed budget that I'm presenting this evening, we have based it on a 3% general pay increase. Again, it will be where teachers receive a 3% of the market general pay increase, which will equal to $1,800 increase. It will bring the starting salary to $53,150. The other administrative professionals, paraprofessionals, and auxiliary will receive a 3% increase to their midpoint. And it does incorporate the starting pay for the hourly job increase to the $15 an hour that we started last year. The next item I have is our personnel. So again, for the proposed budget, we did not select any of the positions, the speech pathologist, the speech pathologist assistants, art facilitators, the diagnosticians, or the dyslexia teacher. Those are not included. We did, however, make some reductions in our salary plan for vacancies and positions in our salary plan that we had funding for. Again, these are not, we are not reducing any positions, just the funding that we had in positions that were excess and have been carried over from prior years and things like that. And that's an estimated $3.5 million in reductions. The next item is our insurance contribution. The district insurance contribution will increase $48.12 per pay period, or $96.23 a month. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go back to the previous slide.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry.
It's reductions. Yeah, it is.
It is a reduction of $3.5 million in personnel costs.
Yes.
Now, in the past, there are some positions that went unfilled. So some of those we're removing, but some of them, even though they went unfilled, are going to stay. So for example, we didn't fill the librarian vacancies. We did fill 2, I think at one of the last board meeting or the one before that. But however many librarian vacancies we have, those remain on the books. Those were not deleted. Then there are other positions where that became vacant here in the last month or two, where people announced that they would not be returning. And we did do a very close analysis, working with all the principals to determine if some of those positions were necessary. I'll give you some examples. In band, the fine arts program, we did reduce 2 people. ROTC, we did reduce 1 person. Credit recovery, we reduced a couple positions there. In the core areas, we asked principals to tighten up and to make sure that their counts were at 28-1. So some of this $3.5 million is made by positions that weren't filled, and they're not gonna get filled moving forward. And a lot of them were based on just reductions in us working with the principals for this coming budget. Okay, so that does make a lot of the positions.
May I mention something here? Somebody else talk, please.
Josh wants to say something.
I'm going to later.
As far as I think,
I'm gearing
one of the reasons that we have so many graduates is because we have so many counselors that are helping our students, with all kinds of things. And I think that made a big difference that, I want to make sure that continues.
It is. We're not
because-
touching that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Okay, so for our insurance contribution, the district insurance contribution will increase $48.12 per pay period, or $96.23 a month for each employee, and that will be at a cost of $800,000. And then, as mentioned before, we will be setting aside an additional $1 million in committed funds. For construction, we had the fencing replacement at SGLC, North Heights, or what will be now Cardwell, and Lamar. And at this time, we are selecting the fencing at the North Heights Cardwell location. The school safety allotment will be $10 per ADA, plus $15,000 per campus. So we're estimating a total of $297,590. Now, that is already included in my revenue figure. It's part of our foundation money that we will receive. And then also, as mentioned before, we had the school safety standards grant that we will be reclassing some general fund projects for. So we will have that possibly set aside that money and committed, which is the $488,377. So we do believe all of these projects will be funded one way in 2023-24. But for the general fund budget at this time, we will be funding the North Heights Cardwell.
Also, I'm sorry, Mr. Mesa, so all this means is that in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, when we meet on the committed funds, at that point, we'll ask you to commit the $488,000 to fencing from the grant, and then we'll be able to definitely do SGLC and Lamar with those same funds, and still have some money left over to consider other fencing projects. Okay.
The next slide I have was our operations. And at this time, we are selecting the Garfield and Annex HVAC replacements, as well as the stadium light bulb retrofit. That comes out to a total of $310,000. For technology, at this time in the budget, we have selected the MDF IDF HVAC for the server rooms, and that's at $15,000. And for the athletics portion, at this time for the locker rooms, we have selected not to include any of those in our budget at this time. So to recap, for the 2023-24 projected budget, again, we have our revenues of $100,732,754, with the projected expenditures of $106,285,921, which will bring us to a projected budget deficit of $5,553,167. However, we do have ESSER 3 funding remaining. It does end in September of 2024, but we're estimating to have about $5,500,000 available, in ESSER funding to help. We will reclass salaries to the ESSER funding. So that leaves us with an overall projected budget deficit with the proposed ESSER funding of $53,167.
Go to the next slide, it's important.
So the slide we have now is looking at is what that does, what that means to our estimated ending fund balance. So based on our current budget, we are estimating an ending fund balance to be $28,073,297. To that amount, we are looking at putting back the committed favorability of $527,731, which would bring our estimated ending fund balance to $28,601,028. From that fund balance, we have our minimum operating fund balance of 75 days of $21,062,629, which would bring our estimated unrestricted funds available to $7,538,399 at the end of 2022-23. With the current projected 2023-24 budget, we are estimating a deficit of $53,167, which would bring our unrestricted funds to $7,485,232. And then at this time, if we were to add the new 23-24 committed projects to that, of the $2.2 million, we would have an estimated unrestricted fund of $5,202,525. Okay.
So, Mr. Mesa, members of the board, this amount that you see here, just want to make sure that we're clear. We would still have unrestricted, that means above what the state requires us to have, we'd still have $5,202,000 above and beyond what the state asks us. This is giving a 3% raise, allocating the $2.2 million to the projects that we indicated, still leaving the other committed funds where the project that we haven't started in committed. Doesn't mean we're going to spend it, but they're there. Now, we did talk at the beginning of the budget cycle about giving a higher pay raise to our employees. So we want to look at the next slide just so y'all can decide what type of raise you want to give. Do you want to give the 3% that we worked for budget purposes? Or do you want to give a higher pay raise? Just know two things, two very important things. If we give a higher pay raise, I say we, Team Away, right? If we give a higher pay raise than the 3%, there's two things that we have to keep in mind. One, it reduces our unrestricted fund balance. And two, if the state doesn't do anything for us, that's money that we have to cut next year. And so we have to keep that in mind. Okay? Now, I can't even begin to imagine what the legislature is going to do. I just know that if they don't do anything, then we have to cut money for next year. So you all have to provide us some coaching on this and just say, you know, do we give a higher pay raise or do we not? But the next slide will show you exactly the bottom line if we were to give a higher pay raise. So we'd like to review that now.
Okay. So all things staying the same. The first column is what I just went over, the proposed budget as we currently have it with the 3% general pay increase would leave us with an estimated unrestricted funds of $5,202,525. If we were to incorporate a 4% general pay increase, our unrestricted funds would be $4,576,934. If we were to incorporate a 5% general pay increase, our unrestricted funds would be $3,938,308. And if we were to do a 6% general pay increase, our estimated unrestricted funds would be $3,290,431.
Mr. President, to conclude with our presentation, just being transparent, $3.2 million would not be the lowest our unrestricted fund balance has been, at least in the last, in the 10 years I've been superintendent. But y'all let us know what you want to do, and we'll act accordingly. I really don't believe there's too much more we can cut from the budget. So this is a good picture of what it would be.
Amy, when do we bring the final amendments forward?
We're scheduled to do the 2022-23 final amendments on June 29th.
June 29th.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea?
And honestly, I do not, sir. We're
That's
closing June in order to finish out the year next week.
That would be carryover money from this year to,
Correct, yes, sir.
that we don't have here yet.
Right, this is an estimate at this time based on budget, but I will not have the actual until the 29th. An estimated actual until the 29th.
But just to be clear, Ms. Childers, the money that we would carry forward in terms of just money that we would add to our fund balance, it wouldn't change too much from what you've added now. This is pretty accurate
This is pretty, yes, sir.
through June.
Yes,
So
sir.
there won't be any additional money that would make the unrestricted balance go up maybe $100,000, but maybe probably not even that much, Mr. Mesa. So this is a pretty clear picture of how we're ending the fiscal year.
I know that there's some money that we carry over at the end of the fiscal year. That's all. But I'll turn it over to board members at this time, starting with Josh.
Thank you. Let's take a history and government lesson there on how the legislature is supposed to fund public ed and how it affects us and what's happened in the last couple months there. Article 7 of the Texas Constitution, Section 1, goes in and says that a general diffusion of knowledge being essential to the preservation of the liberties and rights of the people, it shall be the duty of the legislature of the state of the state to establish and make suitable provisions for the support and maintenance of an efficient system of public free schools. That means, and that's February 15th of 1876. That shows how old it is. Texas is constitutionally required to fund public education in the state of Texas. This year, the legislature spent, unfortunately, more time on other things that are driving people out of the state as opposed to attracting them, and then went ahead and held House Bill 100, which was the bill to go in and fund public education, because originally they started out, if you remember campaign promises, we're going to give huge pay raises to teachers this year. And then the session got started, and they went in and did their little pet projects and things that have, I don't know why they wasted the time on it, but that's neither here nor there. And then the original House Bill 100 had got its way worked down to about a $10,000 pay raise for teachers that they were going to go in and dump in. And then the Senate got a hold of it, the Texas Senate, and added $500 million in vouchers to it in just the first year. And by the time it went, within just a couple of years, it would cost several billions of dollars to fund that. The legislature, the regular session ended here at the end of May with a $33 billion surplus, no basic allotment increase, no raises for anyone in Texas Ed, except the Commissioner of Education, Mr. Mike Morath, who got a nearly $100,000 pay raise from the legislature. They're the guy who runs TEA. Not long after getting that and getting skewered on social media for it, he put out a statement saying, I have not nor will I accept a pay raise. But it should show you where the loyalties of the legislature lie. Instead of funding public education and giving districts to give you the money for pay raises that you so desperately need because of inflation, they didn't fund it. But you know what you can get? You can go to the DMV and you can get a license plate that says you are a Texas teacher. That bill passed and went to the governor to go in and be signed. To put some other stuff in perspective, consider your most stressful day or week as a public educator, for those of you who are watching or might be here. We know that Texas public ed employees are tired. We know that you're burned out. You're underappreciated. Some of you work in under-resourced schools. We know that you busted your rear and sacrificed your own families by helping our students and communities endure a global pandemic. And then you were promised a raise, but then you were used by the leadership of Texas as fodder to say that you're teaching kids to hate America, that we don't say the Pledge of Allegiance in any of our schools. Texas ranks in the bottom 10 states in per student funding. We're like 48th. Let me put it that way. Let's just be honest with you. We ranked 48th when it comes to that. Right now, from 2010 to 2023, teachers in House District 74, which is our district, can go in and make 4.9% less. You make 4.9% less than you were in 2010. And they're because of inflation and everything that's gone in and happened. There's an article right now in the Texas Tribune. The governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House are squabbling over property taxes. The Senate wants a $100,000 exemption. The House has said we've already passed it, and they've gone home. They've gavelled out. The Senate's up there till the remainder of the special session. Abbott says he will call another one until it gets passed. He's not planning on calling a special session for public education funding until at least September. And the reason it's going to be in September, and I hope he proves me wrong, but the reason he wants it in September is he knows y'all will be back in school and cannot descend on the Capitol demanding that the legislature fund public ed under Article 7 of the Texas Constitution as it is constitutionally required to. We started this budget process looking at 6%. Administration has brought us 3% as kind of what the budget is built on. We'll be lucky if there's a session in September. Who knows when we'll see money, because it's all going to come down to the issue of vouchers, which they don't like that word. They're educational savings accounts or parental savings accounts. But the simple fact of the matter is, I can't in good conscience with the fact that it's 4.9% less than what we were doing there, everything that they've put through or been put through, I can't commit to 3% there. I'm personally shooting the moon at 6%, but I encourage the rest of the board to think about, because just about all of us up here have been educators at some point in our life and know what it's like. I would encourage you to come to an agreement on a higher number here by the time that we vote. But I want the people in the audience and watching to understand that we've been put in this position because of 181 individuals in Austin. There. 181 individuals in Austin who are supposed to write that budget and give money and stuff like that. It's those individuals up there that are putting school districts across the state in bad positions. Go look at Texas Monthly Online and read about Fort Davis ISD. They are literally a year or two from complete financial collapse. They're because of the current funding formulas. And there, I know I sent it to Dr. Rios. He's seen it, but you can look up Fort Davis on Texas Monthly, and there's a great article about how the state finances the schools and why we are now in this position, because they would rather prioritize stuff that only affects 1% of the population than the 5.5 million kids that we educate daily in our system. So I call on my fellow board members to, let's see if we can find something higher than 3%, because I can't go along with that when they're making 4.9% less than what we were 13 years ago, because of how horrible inflation has been. And I remained calm for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orfeld. And I just want to reassure that, we don't know the figures yet. I think all of us, we're looking at 6%. I came to talk to Dr. Rios because, originally we thought like we're going to put the minimum 1%, but we can't do 1%. We're going to wait out and see, what the actual money will be, and then we'll take a vote on it. But it's good discussion that we're having, and I'll pass it on to anybody else.
I just
Becky?
want to say that is this on? Yeah. Just a few words. The legislative people, all those that are up there because of the most important persons, and those are the teachers. They, somewhere along the line, got educated. Who educated them? Teachers. So I would say that the teachers are the most important thing, because they're the ones that educate society. So I agree. I think I'm with the 6%. If possible, if we have to go back and look at figures again, but I wouldn't say that a 1% or a 3% is out of the question. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Overfeld, for the history lesson.
Monday through Thursday, B137, come on by.
There you go, sir. It's sad to see that we are at the bottom. It's sad to see that Texas, I don't want to use the words, do not care about education, because like Becky mentioned, half of us up here were educators. And if it weren't for the teachers, and not just the teachers, but you also talk about cafeteria workers, people that take the kids to school, the bus drivers, they're all here for one thing only, and that's for the education of these kids. You wouldn't have the governor, you wouldn't have anybody at the state senate if it weren't for the teachers that started in elementary moving forward. So Mr. Overfeld alluded to the fact that if they did anything, it would be around September, because they're hoping that nobody shows up. But let me tell you, all educators can write. Anybody can write something and send it to the governor's office. And I don't mean as a group, but as individual, even if you say the same thing, but as an individual person, because you all matter. You all are the most important employees in the whole city of Del Rio. You wouldn't have your mayors, you wouldn't have your border patrol, you wouldn't have your highway patrol, you wouldn't have anybody if it weren't for the educators that are teaching our students. We recognize our military every time we see them. We thank them for their service. We thank the highway department, the police officers for what they do for us when we're sleeping at night. But how many times do people come up to you as educators and say, thank you. Thank you for teaching our children. Yes, you're recognized once a year. We have a police department, I want to pick on Mr. Galindo over here, or his department, but we recognize the police department as well. Once a year, we have something for them. We have something for our educators once a year. But we don't see it on a daily basis where people walk up to you and say, thank you. But all of us sitting here, remember that one educator that made a difference in our lives. And if anything that you can do is write letters to the governor, write letters to your state representatives, do it. Because like Mr. Overfelt indicated, a 1%, forget it. 3% is what we're proposed right now. And when I look at the 4% and the difference between the 4 million and the 5 million, or 5,200,000 and 2,525, and the 4,576,934, there's only a difference of 625,591. When I look at the difference between the 3% and the 5%, there's a difference of 1,200,000 or 1,264,217, and the difference between 3% and the 6% is close to $2 million. So those are some things that we as a board have to consider and look at. We want all of our educators, we want everybody in our district to have the best that you can, and that's why we're trying, and hopefully you never, as an employee, ever have to pay for your insurance. Yes, you have to pay for your spouse, or you have to pay for your kids. We all had to do that. But it's something that we as educators and as board members are going to be looking for how we can do something to better where you all are at. So if nothing else, you might not go to the state capitol, but you can write. And don't text, don't email, write. I mean, we all know how to write, so we can do that. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Webb. Anyone else? I just want to clarify one thing. The bill with teacher salaries has been lumped in with vouchers. So the majority of elected officials understand the role of teachers and the cost of living increase and so forth. The only thing is they don't want to pass the voucher. So governor has lumped it together so it'll go past, it'll go through. That's one of the situations that our elected officials are faced with. It's been lumped in with school vouchers. So if you pass one thing, you're going to pass both. And if you ask the majority of elected officials, they do not want to pass vouchers. They do want to pass salary increases. But it's a difficult thing for them. And so letter writing, the campaign for advocacy has become the great tool to have for our elected officials. And we hope that the right thing will be done. Anyone else? If not, thank you very much. We'll close our workshop and continue with our meeting. We're down to item 7. Do we have any citizens to be heard? No. Then we go on to reports. So item 10A, intruder detection audit findings report, Lamar Elementary, Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Let me start this slideshow. As a requirement for our school district in the state of Texas, we are ensuring the school safety of our students. School Safety Center and our school safety priorities, we have to routinely conduct school safety audits at campuses statewide, and of course our district as well. These audits are conducted as part of the Governor Abbott's school safety directives for all school systems, and they help districts identify how campus can improve safety for our schools. So as part of our intruder detection audit, we did have one audit here towards the end of the school year from Lamar Elementary. It was conducted on March the 21st. And at that audit, we did have Phase 2 and Phase 3, an exterior door audit and a classroom door audit, which required corrective actions. Our district, since then, has provided and completed the required actions, corrective actions, and we have provided the in-person training that was conducted on May the 22nd. We have completed the presentation to the District School Safety and Security Committee. And then today, we are presenting publicly the completion of these actions as required by policy. And that's the end of my presentation. Are there any questions?
Board members? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next item we have is consent agenda. Again, there are several purchases under the consent agenda. One action will approve all items on the consent agenda. If there's any questions or if any board member wishes to push any item out of the consent agenda and approve of it separate, now's the time to let us know. Yes, Mr. Orfeld.
Mr. Mesa, I'd like to pull G1
Okay,
for separate vote and discussion.
Okay, G1. Consideration to approve contract over $5,000 with Sandra Garza in the amount of $36,000. Funding source, Title V Rural and Low Income School Grant for math curriculum, instructional support, and resources. Okay,
And then I just have a question on F2.
F2,
On the marker and bulletin boards for the new elementary, are we talking whiteboards in the building, or is that what that's going to be? Or
Yes, sir.
actual bulletin boards for the walls and stuff like that outside the classroom?
No, sir, those are strictly for inside the classroom. Outside of the classroom, we will bring an agenda item, but we're only using strip boards, just about a 1-inch strip throughout the hallway so that we don't have boards everywhere and we don't have tacks everywhere.
Okay.
Can we discuss, Mr. Mesa?
Yes. the item for Mr.
The item that
Orfeld?
Mr. Orfeld wanted to pull?
Sure.
I'll ask Ms. Gomez to come to the podium if there's any questions, but moving forward, we're going to do the Sandra Garza curriculum at the elementary level, and for middle school and beyond, I think we are looking at a different adoption. Is that accurate, ma'am?
Yes, sir. During the June 19th board meeting, we'll be bringing a math adoption for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math.
So
They
we're-
would have gone into their second year this year with Sandra Garza versus elementary.
Mr. Orfeld?
Okay, so I have some questions on it, because, well, the fact of the matter is, I never hear anything positive about it. I don't ever get a teacher that tells me, oh, we love it, there, so I have some concerns that I'd like cleared up before we vote on it. With the new, I guess, STEM designation that we're going to have for the, STEM or P-TECH at the, or STEM at the elementaries, there, does that curriculum at elementary level align to STEM curriculum? In other words, is there STEM in that curriculum already?
So I'll answer that one. So the answer is no, but most of the curriculums that are available out there do not provide what we would want for the campuses with STEM designation. As part of our plan, and we will update the board at the June 19th meeting, Dr. Garza, our Dr. Garza, not the one on the purchase order here, she will provide an update and indicate the curriculum writing, curriculum improvement that we'll be having, particularly geared towards STEM.
Okay. Elementary special ed does this particular curriculum have a special ed built into it? Or is there a specific curriculum we use for our special ed students in elementary?
So there is no curriculum or special ed curriculum. However, this curriculum does provide multiple opportunities for students, and the training that we provide our teachers does allow for modifications to the curriculum. I don't know that there is a particular curriculum out there that's specifically geared, just because every student is different, and every student's accommodations would be different. But I think this curriculum is expansive enough to where we can make appropriate accommodations for the individualized student needs.
How long have we been using this individual's curriculum in the elementary? What renewal year is this going to be?
We started, Mr. Overfelt, I'm going to say about 6 years ago, but we didn't start with the entire K through 3 curriculum. Instead, we started, I believe it was at
3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5, and then we grew down and grew up. We added second grade, and then we added sixth grade, then we added first grade. Middle school, we believe that we would be better served using a different curriculum, and that's why we're moving away from Sandra Garza for the middle school grades.
Okay, so to that thought process of moving away from it to the or when we get into middle school, if this particular curriculum teaches, as an example, math a certain way, and then so the students learn it that way, and then they get to secondary at 6th, 7th, 8th, and the other curriculum that we're going to go with has a completely different approach. How do we handle that? Because you learn it one way, and then it's something new when you get to middle school. And the reason I say this is, I've got an elementary student, and I see the math stuff because I have to help them with that. And math, we didn't do math like that when I was a kid, with the different ways of pulling this over here, and then you do this, and my son's explaining it to me this way. I'm like, why would you go through all of those steps to do it when you can just do this, this, and this? And so whatever we're going to get at the junior high level, is that going to be the same, along that same lines of what this curriculum has, or the kid's going to have to relearn something else for the STAR, EOC, or whatever the legislature decides to call it, whenever they make up their minds on that?
This is probably a longer answer, Mr. Overfelt, than what everybody would be expecting. But the Sandra Garza curriculum, the reality is that we're only paying $36,000 a year. And we're talking about K through 5th grade. That's a whole lot of grades for only $36,000. But we're not doing it because it's cheaper than anything else out there. The reality is that the rigor of the elementary curriculum is entirely different than the rigor of the middle school curriculum. This curriculum that we've been using over the past few years, we have seen the scores either stay steady or make increases using this curriculum. But the rigor at the elementary level is such that this curriculum works perfect for it and for the knowledge base of our teachers. But when you look at the rigor of the tested curriculum at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, there's a huge leap. So our teachers need something, I'm gonna use the word scaffolds it, both for the teachers and for the students at middle school. So the Sandra Garza curriculum, for that very reason, hasn't worked as well as we would want it to work, because particularly in 7th and 8th grade, the rigor takes a huge jump. So we need something that scaffolds it, not only for our students, but also for our teachers. So the curriculums don't have to match at the elementary and the secondary. Now, the way that Sandra Garza has organized her curriculum, uh, it's about building the students' rigor for the future grade levels, and we have had success with it at the elementary. It does require work, it does require our teachers to learn as they go with it, but we have been successful with it. Now, is this curriculum that we're adopting or that we're going to recommend for adoption at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, is that something that we want to move down? Possibly, but we have to study it. But for this coming year, one, it's a little late budget-wise, and two, it's a little late to go study it.
And I guess the last question on it would be, because I've heard it for the last 5 years, is are we still experiencing imperfections in the curriculum in the sense of stuff that's wrong that our teachers catch and have to correct, that the author of the curriculum is not catching, that they're sending to us?
Ms. Gomez is the one that leads that department, and she could probably
Yes,
answer
sir.
that question better.
One of the reasons when we looked at middle school and elementary, Mr. Overfelt, was that we've invested 6 years in correcting any errors. Yes, sir, you are correct. There were errors. Were there major errors? No. Were there frustrational errors? Yes. So the curriculum department spent probably the last 5 years working on an elementary curriculum. We roll it over. Everything's there. We've invested an entire year of making everything into the new STAR 2.0 for elementary. And Sandra Garza is also bringing in her 2.0 questions. So together, we project the work that's been done and the work that's currently being done will have a strong curriculum with very few errors. In middle school, we're just not there. We have not had the staff to help make that curriculum, and it's 658, 690 pages per 6 weeks. It's a lot of documents to go over per grade level. So in elementary, we're at a really good point to continue and be successful. And speaking to the principals, they're like, no, we know it, we've got it, kind of went through our struggles already, and we're at a good place. 6th, 7th, and 8th, well, we don't even have an 8th grade. So 6th and 7th was looking for something, and I did inform Dr. Rios that we won't get the new TEKS for 3 years, so that's when we'll get new money for it. So we're very cautious about what investment to make at what grade level for that reason. The state is not going to allocate any money for math for at least 3 years. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
You want us to vote separately on it, Mr. Overfelt?
I do.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, Amy?
Sandra Garza, we've been hearing this for years, right? And she's the one with the mistakes. I had to ask Ms. Wanabato, right? That's the one that always has mistakes. Some kind of mistake. I'm not saying lots of mistakes because I don't know, I'm not in there, but there's always a mistake, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing to.
I just want to be, I just wanted to be clear on that because
Yes.
it's a mistake.
I have a question, whenever.
Mr. Alito?
If we don't do this, what's the backup plan for the math curriculum? Ms. Gomez?
We have spent the last 8, 9 months, I think since August, Dr. Rose tasked us with researching curriculum. There is nothing for elementary that meets the rigor. And when I say that, we brought in principals, we brought in teachers, we've shown them the different programs that even the commissioner has recommended, that the region has recommended. We've gone to trainings, we've done the webinars. Sandra Garza's rigor is definitely much higher. Are there some mistakes? Yes. We have corrected those for the last 2 years, and now with Judy Galindo's department, we feel very confident that we're at a very good place.
The short answer is there is no backup plans. This is the best that we've come across.
Okay. And I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to say it from my point of view, because you got to understand is that I'm not an educator, but I'm looking at it from a parental point of view. And I echo what Josh has said. When you're sitting there and you're trying to teach your kid how to go through this math, and you can't go through the typical, what's 33 times 30, because you're going through 6 or 7 extra steps. And then we're going to put that, I understand the rigor, and I get it. Like I said, I'm not a teacher, but I can probably understand that you're adding more of a workload to have these teachers teach these kids a different way and then they don't get it. Then they come home to mom and dad who are trying to figure out what we're going to do to help our kids at home. And I'm not saying I'm the best at math, but I love math. And there's a much easier way for us to get by and get in this world by doing it the way that we've originally been taught for many years. Now, like I said, I'm not an educator. I can't, echo what every educator wants, because some educators may like this. But I know there's educators that don't. And I remember seeing this before I was voted on and thinking, what the heck is this? And my kid tells me it's a brand new way of math. So then I talked to other people that work for the district, and they're like, oh, they just added all this stuff, and it's just, gut wrenching. It's annoying. And like I said, this is my personal opinion, whatever. But to add that rigor, like you're talking about, you stated it's a rigor for teachers on top of the other curriculums that we're trying to do and assess and everything we're trying to do. I've heard things before I was on the board. I've heard things as I've been on the board, and that's just my sentiment on it. And I know there's going to be a way to explain to me, look, yeah, but this is the best way. This is but I just don't know how we can continue on, because this is just, we've always been set in one way of math. I'm not saying I'm not adept to learning new things, but this is just a little bit outside too much of the norm. And to go 6 steps to do something that can only take 2 or 3, and putting that back on our teachers to spend so much time on it, and that's just my opinion on it, like I said, so.
Thank you, Ms. Alito. Anyone else?
I have
Becky?
I'm just concerned, have you seen increase for the betterment in bilingual students using this methodology of these Sandra Garza's math curriculum? Has there been in the scores, have they improved any, just because this curriculum is helping the bilingual students?
I don't have that disaggregated data just for bilingual students. I might definitely research it
Okay.
as the scores come
I'm
out.
just wondered on that.
I will remind those that may have been here, when we first started it, it was to increase Algebra 1 8th grade. So we started when the first graders were in first grade, and the plan was that by 2025, when they're in 8th grade, we would double or triple our Algebra 1. Already we've doubled our Algebra 1 students from 150 to 298 this year. So that was the plan for the rigorous, different way of thinking. A 3rd grader thinking about algebra when they do math is definitely different.
And I'm not very familiar with it, but just by what I heard, if there's a lot of steps, our bilingual students might take them a little longer to grasp that. So I'm just concerned on that.
Thank you, Becky.
Definitely.
Dr. Rios?
I understand that a lot of people have difficulty with this curriculum, but 8 years ago, I introduced the STEM 2025 plan, which was our approach to getting. We also know that Algebra 1 is the gatekeeper for students to be more successful in more rigorous curriculum in 8th grade, in high school. So you look at some of the certifications for CTE, Algebra 1 is a huge gatekeeper. So what we've had to do over the past, no disrespect to anybody, but we had to make our teachers more capable of teaching more difficult math, because we weren't going to get any different students. So the only way to make our students better at math was by challenging our teachers to they themselves become better at math. Both things had to work together. And it did cause a lot of frustration, because we had to move people's cheese. But the plan has worked. Our scores have gone up. If you look at our algebra scores in EOC this year, they also have made gains, and we're definitely getting up there. So more kids, not only will we have more kids graduate, we'll have more kids graduate with higher certifications, more rigorous certifications. That's why we've done it. It has created discomfort. I'm not saying it hasn't. It has had some growing pains. It definitely has. But it's learning how to do something different to get better results. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because there's only so many ways of saying what has to be said. But I will share with the board that the state assessment isn't going to change. If anything, it becomes more rigorous, and we have been successful with our plan. If you don't want this curriculum, you're the Board of Trustees, and approving curriculum is one of your roles. I'll put it on the agenda for next month if you want me to, and y'all can direct me to implement a different curriculum. But for this year, there is no other plan. If y'all want us to move away from it, I don't recommend it, because I think we are at where we're at because we've challenged our teachers to be better at it. But if you want us to, then put it on the agenda for next month, and we'll start researching it, and we'll pick the next best thing out there. But for this coming year, we don't have another plan. This is it, and we went with it, one, because we've been successful, and two, because even after we spent 6 months looking at different curriculum, we didn't come up with anything better. But we definitely need it for this coming year. Again,
I'm going to put in my 2 cents worth. I think we've questioned this curriculum enough that it's time for us to see the actual, what we're getting, and either invite us to a training when she comes to do the training. I think this is my 17th year on the board. I haven't seen the scores drastically increase. I see the packet that she turned in and redesigned of the questions in math. The STAR test might go away. Governor Abbott has said, if you pass the vouchers, I'll do away with the STAR tests. I mean, that's how much he wants the vouchers. He is on record saying that. If you pass the vouchers, I will do away with the STAR tests. I've heard enough people say that we need to get rid of it. So even if it's in the packet, redesign a STAR test, we might not even have to use it. But I think the time has come, because we've heard from teachers that, yeah, there's no, you do the test and there's no right answer. You got 4 choices and neither one of them are right. Not one of the 4 choices. That was when it was multiple choice. Of course, the STAR test is not multiple choice anymore, but there might not even be a STAR test. I mean, that's how much Abbott wants vouchers passed. But I think the time has come for us, Dr. Rios, that we've questioned enough the Sandra Garza curriculum that we need to see what we're getting. Either invite us to a training, have a session where we can see, and I don't want hand-picked teachers. I want to see the training, and then for us to, during the break, ask teachers how they're doing. But if parents, I don't have any kids. My granddaughter graduated this year, so I can't ask the kids about their math questions or how they're solving. But if parents can't help the kids, that's a horrible situation. It's a difficult situation, because parents need to help their kids and understand how it's done. So there's many questions about the Sandra Garza curriculum, and I understand, Dr. Rios, we're kind of in a bind before time goes and the start of the year happens. But when we spend $36,000, I want to know what we're getting. I think it's time for us to set up something.
So, Mr. Rose, just to make sure that I understand or that I can articulate a plan going forward. So please approve this, because we don't have another plan right now. But what we'll do is we'll inform the board of the next training, or if the board wishes, we can set up a curriculum workshop any afternoon. We can have Sandra Garza herself come. We can open it to any of the teachers in the district to come be part of the audience, have comments from the teachers, presentations from both Ms. Gomez and Sandra Garza, and and teachers in an open forum. And then at that point, after all that, if y'all want to put on the agenda and direct district leadership to just come up with a whole new curriculum, well, at that point, we have a whole year to look at it. And we can set up the workshop for September, October, anytime that gives us enough time should we move in a different direction.
One last question.
Mr. Orfeld?
Is her curriculum, what's it built around? Is it built around the TEKS or is it built around some other math model?
The TEKS resource.
TEKS resource?
Yes, sir.
Even though it suspiciously looks like Common Core?
I'm sorry, like who?
Like Common Core math?
Yes.
Yes
The
TEKS
one-
or yes Common Core?
TEKS resource. And
Okay.
it's all tied in. That's how we built our documents.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I withdraw my request to have it voted on separately. But I would like to attend a workshop that the teachers are going to. We'd just like to drop in on it. So we don't need a special one in here.
And we already know she will be here on August 10th. She'll be doing the K-5. It's an hour per grade level.
We'll be there.
I can send you the schedule, and it'll be right here at the Garfield gym.
That's,
It's already
it
set.
would be better off. Yeah, we would have a better understanding of that.
And
Mrs.
then we're
Wood?
gonna open it up and allow the teachers to come in and make comments, right? Correct? Is that,
If we do a workshop,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
If it's at the training, the teachers will be there, you can talk to them directly.
okay.
But, so it's whatever y'all
As long
want.
as we're able to, because, I mean, like Josh said, they do reach out and they talk about that, but I think the teachers are up for the challenge. I think it's the
Yeah.
mistakes. They're having to fix the mistakes from the curriculum all the time, correct? Am I right about that? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
We-
That's what I mean, I just wanted to be clear. I mean, I think they're all up for it, but it's just having to do some extra work that they shouldn't have to be doing.
Yeah. Ms. Wood?
Yeah, I just have some comments, and I'm not gonna put any teachers on the spot. Amy and I were talking about that, and we're not gonna ask any teachers. But we do hear from different teachers, and we've been discussing Sandra Garza for the last, I don't know how many years, and including the mistakes. Dr. Rios mentioned algebra, but we're not even gonna do this for algebra. That's totally separate now. But I know that at one point, we had our own educators working on curriculum that they developed, and it was step by step from first grade, second, and it was scaffold all the way through. Whatever happened to that? Because if we keep getting mistakes from Sandra Garza, and I'm sure she has addressed it with TEKS. I'm not gonna say I don't know the lady, but I have heard from other educators from UT that know her, that says her curriculum is based off of another curriculum, but I can't justify that for fact. But it could be a combination of another curriculum and of course, following TEKS. But what happened to that when we use our own educators to develop the curriculum, especially something as rigorous as math and the flow of it?
Yes, ma'am.
So, ma'am, we moved away from having educators write the curriculum because depending on who would want to write curriculum over the summer, that's the type of curriculum we would get. We would get a handful of teachers, and one would want to write the curriculum this way, one would write the curriculum a different way. And there wasn't a district way of writing the curriculum. So over the last couple of years, we refined that process to where we had curriculum, just a consistent team that would write the curriculum based off of obviously something that we already had or something that we contracted for. But here's the reality. This year we've had more people, take the Algebra 1 EOC. The state averaged 78% passing of Algebra EOC. That's a whole state, 78%. Our region averaged 74%, 4% lower than the state. Our district's average was 81%. So what we've been able to do, build the rigor of students and their understanding. So not only do we have more kids taking Algebra 1, we have more kids being successful, more than the state, more than the region. And that has everything to do with the rigor that they built up from third grade on up. We're way better than the state, way better than the region, but it is difficult. It does create a different standard. So that's why we're so inclined, to stand by it. 74% at the region, 81% at the district, 78% at the state. I mean, our results are way better than the region or the state. But that's because of the rigor we've been able to build. It is difficult. Yes, it does come with its mistakes. Now, we think the mistakes are less and less, mainly because, our team has worked to fix them, but it's worked. And unfortunately, I understand that it's harder for parents to help the kids at home, but then the reality is that if parents were taking that same STAR test in third, fourth, and fifth grade, could the parents do it themselves? They couldn't, because it's different. So it's no surprise that parents can't help them with all the homework, but it's just because we're teaching the way the state is testing. But anyhow, that's
So
my point. We'll do the workshop.
I made a point that I haven't seen the increase. So can you tell me of an elementary campus that has been distinguished? Matt?
No, sir, not as of last year. I don't know what the scores will be this year.
How about since we started with this curriculum?
No, sir, but the purpose of the
sixth
curriculum
grade.
is not to have immediate results, but to build rigor for when it counts, for when the kids get to high school.
Well, yeah, but we've been using this curriculum for years now. Anyway, that's my point. I think we need to see what we're getting. So August 10th, if we can receive an
I will
invitation,
send the information, yes, sir,
reminder.
with the schedule.
Okay. Then, Mr. Orfeld, you want to put that item back into consent agenda? Then one action will approve all items on the consent agenda. Is any further discussion? If not, I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda to be approved. Mr. Orfeld made a motion. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Galindo? All those in favor? One, two, three, four, five. And how many opposed? One. Okay.
6-1.
6-1. 6-4, 1 against.
Can I make
Motion-
one comment real quick?
Yes, Mr. Lindo?
I just wanted to understood, we're gonna have to move forward to get a curriculum, but if it's not working after August 10th, I wanna see something change then. If we're not getting what we think is in there and hearing from the teachers and letting them allow the forum and, I know we're gonna try to go through it through 1 year, but I would probably start thinking, if this isn't gonna work after August 10th, start thinking of something else. I asked that, at least research it. We're gonna give them 1 more year of this, but, you could tell, it's not favorable. We understand that. But we're gonna give it a chance and we're gonna be objective and wanna listen to it. But if it's not, and we hear throughout the year it's not working, just so you know ahead of time, you as a,
research
district head, start maybe thinking of what we could otherwise use if later on. I may be wrong. I may come back and think, you know what, from hearing on it, it's gotten better. And I hope I am, but I'm just making sure it's out there because I'm also listening to what's being said. We have to do it because we don't have another option this year, but, I don't want to, that's just where I'm at.
Statement understood, Mr. Lindo. Thank you. Okay, we go on to administration, item 12. The item that we have is technology and operations. Under technology and operations, item A, consideration to approve a change order with Legacy Properties in the amount not to exceed $13,200. Funding source, committed funds, North Heights remodeled to Cardwell for contracted painting services at North Heights Elementary School. Mr. Chapa.
Good evening, Board President Mesa, Dr. Rios, board members. Recently, the board approved a painting project with Legacy Properties for the subject campus. During the process of implementing the painting, we noticed that one of the exterior buildings, Building G, was not accounted for in the original scope of services. So now we're bringing it to you for approval.
Any questions from board members? Okay, recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration, the Board of Trustees approve the change order with Legacy Properties in the amount not to exceed $13,200 for the contracted painting services at North Heights Elementary School.
For the recommendation, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Ms. Gonzalez, seconded by Mr. Galindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under Business and Finance, item 15 on the agenda, consideration to approve the board meeting date for the purpose of adopting the 2023-2024 budget and discuss proposed tax rate be set for June 19, 2023. Amy Childers.
Good evening once again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. The 2023-24 budget is being prepared for the purpose of adopting the budget. Administration is requesting that the meeting date to adopt the 2023-2024 budget and discuss the proposed tax rate be set for June 19th, 2023.
Question from board members. Is there anyone that has a problem with that date?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be in town
Okay.
on that date.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Russell,
That's-
just
yes.
for, that is the regular board meeting date.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, then. No further questions. Recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the date of the public hearing for the purpose of adopting the 2023-2024 budget and discussion of the proposed tax rate be set for June 19th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 15B, consideration to approve the 2023-2024 district compensation plans. Aide Garcia.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Earlier, Amy presented the different plans, different percentages. So tonight, we are asking for your guidance as to what percentage you would want us to process. And then for the June 19th meeting, we will bring the entire compensation pay plan. But we would have to approve the percentage today.
So in short, Mr. Mesa, we want y'all to table this item for today. We gave you an option of from 3% all the way to 6%. We're going to formally bring it back for adoption at the June 19th meeting. We just didn't think that it was wise to share this information with y'all today and then ask y'all to vote on it today. We're prepared to run a budget from 3% to 6% raise. Y'all have all the data in front of y'all. But I just didn't think it was fair to ask you to vote on it today. I wish we could have provided this even earlier, but you know, up until yesterday, we were still working with principals to reduce positions. So we just think you should table it, and if any one of y'all wants to make a comment, we'll definitely take notes and then be able to bring the proposed increase for your adoption at the next meeting.
So, Dr. Rios, on the 19th, we can't really say if we will have anything new from the 80th legislative session.
We won't have anything new, Mr. Mesa. It's just about providing board members 2 weeks of consideration of what y'all want us to do. And you could comment now and we'll take notes just so that we more or less know what we're looking at.
When I see the figures, for me, what won't leave us in short of funds, the higher the better, so I would agree with the 4% instead of a 3%. I don't know what the other board members feel. I feel that the estimated unrestricted funds will still be plenty there.
Can I make a comment before y'all, just to provide a little bit more information?
Sure.
So there is another option that I mentioned to y'all in the board update. You can pick something less than 6%, or you can pick 6%. But if you pick something less than 6%, we can incorporate into the recommendation that should the legislature take any action in a special session, then we could come back and make another recommendation for an additional 1%, 2%, 3% raise. So that doesn't mean that whatever raise you approve on the 19th, it's going to be the only raise for the entire year. Now, if the legislature doesn't take any action, well, then it would be final. But you can approve a certain percentage now, or now, meaning on June 19th, and then if the legislature takes action, we'll come back, review what it does to fund balance, and then you can choose to increase an additional 1%, 2%, 3% at that point. And we've already discussed it with our attorney, and as long as we put that language in the recommendation, you can certainly do that.
And it would go all the way back to July 1?
It will be retroactive to the start of the fiscal year.
Now, the reason that, and I want to be frank with everyone, is the reason I selected 4% is, we know the cost of living increase. Retirees were given a 4% just because of the inflation rate. Now, I think all of us would prefer 6%. The only thing is the uncertainty, is like, what's going to happen? It's a very volatile year, and the 88th legislative session, I think the priorities are all horrible because it's vouchers. You do vouchers and we'll eliminate the STAR test. I mean, that's how bad they want this. So, that's why I'm looking at 4% because, retired teachers are getting 4% increase for the cost of living. And, I mean, everybody wants 6%, but we don't know exactly what we're getting.
What about 5%?
It's up to the board, it's not up to me, but.
Now, does that 4% in COLA for retired teachers, did the governor sign that, or does that have to go to the voters in November, here in November, as a constitutional amendment?
No, the governor
I
doesn't
think it was
design
passed through.
It has
They're
to go,
getting us
it
check
has to go
too.
to November, to the voters.
I thought I had read it was
I
passed.
thought I had read that.
Yeah.
it was
The
gonna
COLA.
be up to the
They
governor.
were gonna get a check if you're 72 to 75 and so forth like that.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Yeah.
I thought it was a done deal.
Yeah,
That's what I
that's the
read.
way I read it.
Let me look while y'all debate.
If you're, for retired teachers that are 75 years or older, they're getting 7,500.
Yeah.
A 13th check. But what I read, it was already a done deal.
That's what I read.
I'm waiting for my check, my 4% increase. So, it's up to the board. We're in discussion right now, but
4 or 5.
when I see the 6%, I mean, we're left with very few.
Yeah, that would be
Funds.
almost 2 million.
But when you look at the 3 and 4, it's very close. But it's up to the board.
What do you want them?
We can always amend it.
Mr. Galindo, what do you say?
Time for discussion.
Amy, says 5, I say 5. I don't know about anybody else. So it's like, go down the road. Majority wins.
So what is it?
We can still keep on cutting them back, right? We can still discuss that.
Becky, what do
More
you think?
expenses. No, not that. Expenses. Cutting back in programs or something like that. We can still talk about that.
So, I have a
We're already down to
question.
the bare bones.
Mr. Galindo has a question.
Yes.
I'm talking.
No,
Oh, sorry.
no, she's done.
I'm
I
sorry.
got the floor right now.
Sorry.
No, are we down to the bare bones, sir?
We have some room, but not very much. I wouldn't say, if you asked me to cut the budget another $1 million, it would be outside of personnel costs. And $1 million on programs, it has a huge impact, a huge impact. So I would just say that for now, this is pretty much as far as we can cut. Moving into our departments, it's difficult because we're talking about cutting fine arts budget even more, athletics budget even more, campus allotments even more. So I wouldn't recommend thinking that we can further cut. This is pretty much, we've gone deep already, especially in personnel.
So we're not voting on this.
No, I just,
Discussion.
we just want some discussion.
I mean, you pretty much answered it. I mean, I want to give as much as we can. My only question is if we did that and we don't get anything in September, October, how drastic are the cuts going to be? To where does it impact, teacher, staff members' experience on how they work? Are we going to start looking at increased numbers because we're going to have to cut teachers, increase student to teacher ratios? Are we going to have to start looking at all that if we weren't to get anything in September, or October?
So for this coming year, no, the budget is set. We don't cut anything more this year. What we shared that we would have in fund balance, that's pretty set. We don't have to worry about cutting anymore. What we do have to consider is the cuts for the following
That's
school,
what I
the
mean.
24-25 school year. We don't know how insurance rates are going to continue to climb. Because it's biennium, I don't expect that the legislature will do anything else next year. I mean, this is the session. But the following year, this time next year, it would be a more difficult conversation if the state doesn't do anything. I think that we're already having to start to look at things different. For example, there are certain courses that students take, and maybe we have to offer them in more of a survey type setting to cut back on teachers. So there are different approaches that we're going to have to take where it would be a higher class size. If the funding continues the way it is, we are going to have to think of how to do things differently. But we're not going to jump into it. We're going to wait and see what the legislature does and then respond to it. That's going to be a reality. Having teachers pay for their own insurance to a certain extent, whatever the contribution might be. If the state doesn't give more money and insurance rates continue to go up, there's nowhere else to get money from. But those are discussions for the future. It's just the knowledge that they're going to have to happen either way if the state doesn't do their part. And I can tell you that saving $1 million this year isn't going to do that much good if the state doesn't kick in. Does that make sense? So whether we give a 4% or a 5% raise this year or 6%, if the state doesn't do what the state needs to do, $1 million isn't going to do that much of a difference, and neither is $2 million for that matter. The other part that we have to consider is we keep a fund balance that the state encourages to keep. They don't require us to keep that. It's not like they're going to come here and take over the district if our fund balance goes under 75 days. So if the state doesn't do their part, what are districts going to do in the future? Just keep $21 million in the bank to have them there? It's not, the state doesn't want to fund us, but then they want to give us a B or a C rating on our finances if we don't have the 22 million in the bank. at that point, if we can't keep our employees happy, what does it matter that we get an A on our financial rating if we have unhappy teachers? As a superintendent, I'm telling you, if the state doesn't want to fund education, then who cares whether they give us a B or a C in our financial rating? It doesn't make a difference. What matters is if our kids are learning or not learning. That's what really makes a
That's
difference.
what matters.
Now, that's
6%,
my
let's go.
soapbox.
There you go.
I said 6%, let's go.
So, to clarify something, if we set 6% and we don't get anything in return from
The state.
the state, we're okay for this year, but not for next year.
Correct, absolutely. We are not okay for next year without going to that 21 million that the state says that they would like us to have in fund balance.
Well, that's the only thing I
Let's do
would not want to
6%.
cut staff. That's where I'm being conservative. I wouldn't want to, have to cut staff. And I know you mentioned before art and music and maybe later on down the line, but I would not want to cut staff. That's my opinion.
And that's where it would head to. We would cut, we already took out excess positions, so nobody's lost their job. Is that a possibility next year?
No, sir.
Okay.
We never really cut jobs, but we would not fill vacancies. We would have to reassign teachers to vacancies. I'll give you an example. We talked about positions that we didn't need to fill for this coming year. And there's at least 4 positions that we have people in those positions, but we don't need them for next year. So then the idea is, okay, where are we going to move them for this coming year? Because we're not going to terminate them. So they may have to go and teach elementary, or they may become permanent subs. So we save on subs and just use them in a different manner. But we're not going to let go of anybody.
No, that's what, but, and I'm trying to, like I said, we can go all the way to 6%, that would be great. I'm just worried, what I'm just thinking about is, you've seen some of the campuses and I've seen, and it's not to pick on anything. I went to one campus and there's so many amounts of special ed kids in there. And they have one person to it and, is that gonna affect them next year? We're not able to do it because we can't fill a vacancy because we have to get rid of the excess vacancy. Or are the classroom size, because what I hear is that we have too many kids sometimes in the classroom. Is that gonna affect the classroom size for the teachers next year? Not this year, but next year where, the whole point of the rezoning was to keep it at low numbers. Are we gonna have to increase the amount of classes as far as going from 22 to 28?
Never at the elementary, but at the secondary, we have them budgeted right now at 28. It could go up at the secondary, but never at the elementary.
And so I was just trying to think of the quality of the employment for the teachers. I mean, either way, just don't want to lose on either end. I'm just trying to think. Would love to give 6, and I would, if we can, let's do it. I just want to make sure that they're not going to downplay some of that quality because they're going to get fuller rooms, or we're not going to be able to get assistants for other positions because we're kind of doing away with them or not filling them. That's just my 2 cents. But
No, I
at the end of
understand.
the day, I wanted to make sure that we can maximize what we can give.
In secondary, it does affect, I've seen as many as 38 students per teacher.
We don't have that right now, by the way, other than.
No. But I just want to know the possibilities, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's
This is
assuming that we
hard.
don't get anything. Now, if we do, then hey,
All right.
touchdown,
Well, I'm
thankfully.
being conservative, and that's, but I do want everyone to speak up and say, what. Because as I mentioned, I think all of us want 6%, but, I'm looking at the way things are going with the 88th session is that things are not moving along. But you have to understand, vouchers was placed with salaries, and so we have to understand, where the elected officials are coming from, because if you polled the majority people don't want vouchers. The governor does. So if we, let's say that we go for a 4%, we can always add 2% more.
The way the language is, Mr. Massa, only if the legislature takes action. We can't just arbitrarily come back and say, okay, well, let's go ahead and add another 2%. The way we
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
to our attorney,
Only if the legislative
Yes, sir.
session. Well, I'm being conservative, but it's up to the board.
Mr. Massa.
Yes, Becky.
I'm really, really looking at 6%, but if not, if that's gonna give us, let's at least go 5%. And that way, if the legislature does give us, then we can go retroactive to 6%.
Okay,
So I would say no lower than 5% at least.
okay. Becky Chavez, 5%.
I feel the same way. We talked, me and Ms. Wanawada talked about, I would love to go with 6 right off the top, but I'm okay with 5.
Okay,
But if we can give 6, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Either one.
we're good with 5%,
I'll make a motion.
6%, Josh?
That's where I'm at.
Yes.
I mean, the board can take whatever motion it wants and go from there, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. That's where I'm at.
6% too.
Yeah, Ms. Gonzalez, 6%? Okay.
Well, I think we all want 6%.
We all want 6%,
They're asking,
but
the answer is.
I'm being
I'm just going by, the legislature giving us a little something.
Sure.
And that would make it jump from a 5 to a 6.
Yes.
That's my way of thinking, but
Yes.
I'll go along. and-
Sure, I'm the same way, Becky. I'm conservative because the way things are going, they're not moving too many bills across.
Mr. Massa, just
Yes.
one other point for your thinking. If you do a higher percentage this year, the reality is that for this year, we can afford it.
But
Okay.
next year.
But for next year, besides having to have serious cuts, or go into fund balance, like I said, so, do you give 6% this year and 1% next year? Or do you give 4% this year and possible 3% next year? And that's another part of it. So next year, not only, whatever action you do today, very possibly will affect next year.
Yeah. No,
in terms of
I
rates.
appreciate that, and the fact that I mentioned 4% is what the state is giving to retired teachers. And.
Yeah, but the retired teachers are not in the classroom with 28 students of fees on a daily basis.
No, I
So,
know,
I'm
a retired
looking at
that's why
either the
retired
5
means not active. Retired
Exactly.
means not active.
So
The only
either
thing
the
is.
5 or the 6, and,
No, I understand. The only thing is, what Dr. Rios mentioned, I would not want for us to be, giving a 6% and then next year not able to give 3%. That's the only thing.
But there's no guarantee on that either. So to us, it's like, to me, it's like, we're here right now, what do we need to do right now? Next year is not a guarantee either or.
No, I know.
So,
Dr.
that's
Rios,
what I'm
that's
saying,
what Dr.
either,
Rios mentioned right now.
5% with a possibility of a 1% later on down the road, or a 6% right up front.
Yeah, 6% in consequences.
Yeah.
I hear
5.
5%, I hear 6%, I hear 4%, and then the rest 6%. Mr. Galindo, what was yours?
I'm going high, Mr. Massa. I'm
Okay,
going on
6.
6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Galindo, 6%? Then let's do 6%, and then we'll go on down the line and see what happens. 6%.
It's not a guarantee.
Okay, so we're not making a recommendation today.
No.
Yeah.
So
We're
just-
But just to
discussing.
give us ideas so that we can prepare everything behind the scenes, so that we can bring
Yeah.
the different models that you choose.
I just want, Mr. Mesa, I just want the board members to take note that Ms. Childress looks like she has a world on her shoulders.
It's okay, Miss Amy, I'll pray for you, girl. You could do
Mr. Olindo.
I think I'll just, if we can, in our next board update that we have on Sunday, just generalize what we will be looking at as far as cuts wise, so we can have, because, I mean, remember, we're looking at this right now, and we're saying 5, we're saying 6, you know, and I'm either or 5 or 6, right? I just would like, okay, look, if it didn't go, what would be the general cuts we're looking at next year, how it would affect, so we can make a more firmer decision to say, okay, this is what it's gonna entail if we did it and we didn't get funding, this is what it's gonna be cutting. Because it may change it may look at it like, okay, you know what, we can do without this for a year and then see where we're at in 2 years and see what the next legislation brings. Or it may be something that you're not favorable to cut because of how generalized it is, and we may have to look at it different ways. Like I said, it's all for giving as much as we can. I just wanna make sure that the quality for the educators and the staff at the district doesn't change because the state doesn't want to give us money. And that's what I just asked. So on the next Sunday, or when we come back that Sunday in 2 weeks, you know, give us a generalized idea. If they were to not give us any money, what would be the generalized cuts for the following year that we may be facing?
We'll do that this weekend. I think that, I think that'll be easy enough to do.
Okay.
So this weekend, and then we'll review it and update it the following weekend if we need to. But
So this is not final? This is
No,
just
discussion.
a state, yeah. Okay,
Discussion.
that's good.
okay, we'll do that.
Okay, so item 15B is tabled. We'll come back to it later. We're down to item 16 on the agenda, Human Resources. Consideration to approve the conversion of a Secretary PEMS data quality compliance and accountability to Student Information Systems Technician in the PEMS Data Quality Compliance and Accountability Department. Javier Garcia.
Yes, sir. Administration is requesting to convert the position of secretary in the PEMS department as they move away from the paper-based into a digital platform. And with this position, they're going to require more staff with more expertise on computer coding skills and JavaScript.
Okay, so we're converting to paperless, which is good. Any questions? Wish we could convert to paperless with this board agenda, which we've done in the past, but some of these packets are pretty heavy. But, okay, no questions. We'll take the recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the conversion of the Secretary PEMS Data Quality Compliance and Accountability to Student Information System in the PEMS Data Quality Compliance and Accountability Department.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Mr. Orfeld. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Down to item 16B, discussion and possible action to approve employee job descriptions and evaluation forms. Javier Garcia.
In your packet, you have the job description for this position that we just mentioned. So it is a conversion. So we will no longer have the secretary position, and it'll be converted to the Student Information System Technician.
Questions? Hearing none. Recommendation.
It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the employee job description and evaluation forms as discussed.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Webb. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the time is 7:34 p.m. We're going to go into closed session pursuant to 551.074 and 551.071 of the Texas Education Code. If an action is required for approval, it will be taken upon reconvening into open session. We're now in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera.
Okay, the time is 8:24 p.m. We're going to reconvene into open session. No action was taken in executive. We're down to item 20A, consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, resignations, retirements. Ida Garcia.
Yes, sir. Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resignation, vacancies, and following new hire. Rosa Garza, pre-kindergarten teacher at Irene Cardwell. Sarah Serwatka, third grade teacher at Robert Bobby Barrera Elementary. Sarah Salazar, third grade teacher at Ruben Chavira Elementary. Liberty Valdez, fifth grade teacher at Ruben Chavira Elementary. Joanna Ortiz, second grade teacher at Ruben Chavira Elementary. And America Cordova, first grade teacher at Ruben Chavira Elementary.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mrs. Webb, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We're going to table item B, C, D, and E. Therefore, there's no other items on the agenda. Is there a motion for adjournment? Motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night, everyone.